This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports. Good morning and welcome to the debate show. I am BA, your host with Jack Hirsch. Momentarily, James Martin will be on here. He's running just a little bit late. Today is the 29th of November. Hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving. Have a volley of debate questions that are coming up. And we'll start off with this one and just have James come on when he gets on here to add to this one. And this is going to go directly to you, Jack. Which team's legacy was hurt more by not closing out its opponent to win the championship? The 73-win Warriors team that lost to the Cavaliers, or the 18-1 Patriot team that lost to the Giants in the Super Bowl? Go ahead, Jack. Give us an intro.
I'm going to tell you, this is kind of like twofold. The obvious answer would seem to be the Patriot team, because had they won that Super Bowl game against the Giants, made a defensive stand, they'd be 19-0. And who would we be saying, Brian, is the greatest NFL team of all time? We'd have to say the Patriots.
Mm-hmm.
Without question, just based on accomplishment, plus them having the quarterback who is generally considered the greatest of all time, referred to as the GOAT, Tom Brady. That would have given him an 8th Super Bowl. Instead of being 7-3 in Super Bowls, he would be 8-2 in Super Bowls and having that 19-0 season. But with that said, I actually think team-wise, if we don't look at it in a narrow scope, it's the Golden State Warriors. If we look at it for 1 year in a narrow scope, yeah, of course it's the Patriots, but I think it's the Golden State Warriors. They had a 73-win season, which was an NBA record. And they had a 3-1 lead over the Cavaliers. Had they closed them out, imagine in the 5th game, we would be arguing who was greater, them or the Chicago Bulls. At the very least, they would be on a par with the Bulls. And the debates would be going on. And we'd be debating Stephon Curry. That would be his 5th ring. We would be elevating him ahead of Magic Johnson, actually, because he had more offensive firepower than Magic. And Magic likes to always bring up the excuse, and I think it's lame personally. Oh, I got 5 rings. You know, that's what Magic kind of likes to fall back on. But Steph would have had 5 rings, the same as Magic and Kobe. But the difference would have been that Steph's team, the Warriors, would have been better than those teams as far as, at least statistically, they would have been record setters in that sense. But instead, Golden State is considered an outstanding team of their era. Okay? But when we talk about the great teams, they kind of fall a tiny bit behind the LA Lakers, for example. Even the Celtics with Larry Bird with 3 championships, for whatever reason, in the minds of some, Golden State really isn't ahead of that team. And, you know, by allowing LeBron James, Kyrie Irving, and the Cavaliers to come back, I think in the big picture, it hurt them a little more, because the Patriots have 2 decades of being outstanding. 2 decades of being outstanding. And we think of the Patriots as being a dynasty. We don't quite think of Golden State as quite being a dynasty, just a little short of a dynasty. But had they closed out the Cavaliers, they would have gone down as one of the great sports teams of all time, and they don't. And even that Patriot team that lost the game in the Super Bowl, they are considered by most to be a top 10 team. It's unfortunate they missed out on immortality. And for one season, yeah, their legacy was hurt more for one season. But in a bigger picture, bigger scope, I actually think the Golden State Warriors legacy was hurt just a little more.
So, good morning, James. How are you?
Good morning. I apologize to everybody, you two guys, and everybody in the show for being late. Man, I have no excuse. I just really overslept. But
That's pretty awesome. I would have come up with an excuse, James. It doesn't look bad not to have an excuse. You remind me once. I just want to tell a quick little story very quickly. When I was in college, I had a course fencing, believe it or not. First day of class, the professor's practically chewing everyone out. He hates lateness. It's the one thing he can't tolerate. He hates it. That's the one thing we better not do. First class after that, the darn guy comes late. And he says, "I'm sorry, fellas. I should have given myself more time." And I always thought that was awesome. I would have said I had a flat tire. I would have been too humiliated, you know? He came clean the way you did. It kind of reminded me of that. So kudos to you.
Yeah, flat tire. That's hilarious, man. Yeah, look, Golden State. You chose Golden State, and I guess you could have went either way on this question. But it's really got to be New England. It's got to be 2007 New England Super Bowl. There's not. I mean, look. There's all we can go back to Golden State. They got 73 wins. The Bulls got 72 wins. I mean, and they still lost a few games, but they won the championship. Golden State, they were down 3-1. I mean, they were up 3-1, and they collapsed. But I mean, they collapsed against a guy that's arguably generational talent. Somebody he's in the same ilk of breath of a LeBron James, of other greats that have come along, once in every generation. So if you got to lose to somebody, you lose it. You don't lose to no offense, the Pistons. And now then then you have a problem if you actually lose a 73 win season like that. But let's go back to the Super Bowl. Let's go to them and talking about Tom Brady. I mean, Tom Brady was the MVP that season. Randy Moss had a record for 23 touchdowns. I don't think that's even touched for a wide receiver still. I think he still holds that record right now. 18-0. They faced the Giants towards the latter part of the season, and that was a very tough game. But it's just ridiculous just how hard it is to win that many games. And you can look at all the Super Bowls that they've won. You say they won all these Super Bowls. I guarantee you that's the one that they cry over the most that they did not win. It's got to be because there's you have an opportunity to be immortal. And when I say immortal, meaning you're in the upper echelons. Only one team has done this in the history of the NFL, and that's the 72 Miami Dolphins. And like I said, I can name a few teams that have broken the record and won championships in the NBA. We're talking about the Lakers in the 70s, the Bulls in the 90s, the Celtics in the 60s. They've all done it, and they were great at that moment. But this has been one team. And not only this, it's devastating because you lost to a team that had 28 sacks in a regular season in the Giants, and they were ranked 22nd. They were devastating in the playoffs. Eli Manning was average in the regular season. He had 23 touchdowns and 20 interceptions. Got in the playoffs, they all got hot. He had 800 and some odd yards, 6 TDs, 1 interception, and it was almost like magic. It was like a David against Goliath. They were projected to win by 14 points. We're talking about the Patriots here, and it just didn't come to fruition. They lost. I mean, Randy Moss joined this team. Junior Seau was on this team. A lot of things you can look at the storylines and say that this team was just geared to dominate in this game, and they were dominated ultimately. And that last drive was just magical for Eli Manning and for that offense of the Giants. It seemed like it was supposed to be. It was supposed to happen. I mean, the catch, everything that you can see here with David Tyree when he catches the ball, it's like, oh man. And I'm because you brought this question up. It made me watch the Super Bowl last night. That's probably why I'm late. That's the excuse I'm going to give you. I did watch the Super Bowl over, and it was 2 hours, and it was like in the wee hours. I went to bed at about 2:30, 3 in the morning, watching that Super Bowl. But I'm going to tell you, watching that Super Bowl again, it gave me chills down my spine. I can't believe how good that game really was. It was just like, wow, this team absolutely lost. They lost that game, and it was to the last minute, pretty much 35 seconds left when Practical Burr scores that touchdown. It's just incredible, and they're never going to live that down. I mean, unfortunately, rest in peace.
James. No. We know for one season. Yeah, I understand that, and I said that before. But I just want to correct one thing. The Patriots were absolute favorites without question, but they weren't considered a lock. They had played the Giants the last game of the regular season, which was a big game for the Patriots. Patriots won 38-34. It was a tough game that they were in danger of losing. They knew that Giants were a serious threat, but no one was really picking against the Patriots, even though they knew there was the possibility that the Giants could upset them. The Giants have more than a puncher's chance going into the game, even though the Patriots are solid favorites. The Giants were not a long shot to win the game. I kind of want to emphasize that. And you're right about the point you made about that one Super Bowl. Tom Brady himself said he would have traded an extra Super Bowl for that one. Tom Brady, who has 7 Super Bowl wins to his credit, I'm sure would settle for 5 if he could have that one amongst the 5. So we agree 100%. But we also agree on this when we talk about the great teams in NFL history, not for one particular season, but a run of success. Everyone mentions the Patriots, maybe even as number one for the 2 decades that they put together. I'm not talking one particular season, because if you want to go one particular season, the Bears lost 1 game and they're the consensus pick as the best team, over the Dolphins that won unbeaten. And no, people don't consider that unbeaten Dolphin team, the greatest. Very few people, consider that. I lived through that Dolphin, team thing, and the Bears would have rolled over them, But the Dolphin team the following year that lost a couple of games is better than the unbeaten team. But what I'm saying is this. Let's talk about 2 individuals and narrow it down, James. Tom Brady and Steph Curry. Whose legacy was hurt more? I think Tom Brady's legacy hardly missed a beat with losing the game. Had they won, it would have jumped up a little more, the immortality, the unbeaten season, I agree. Or Steph Curry. Steph Curry, when we talk about the greatest NBA players of all time, his name doesn't quite get there. Not quite get there. Okay, let's be honest about it. You talk about Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, LeBron, Michael Jordan, Kobe. We don't quite talk about Steph Curry quite on that level, maybe close. Had Golden State closed out the Cleveland Cavaliers, Steph Curry would be right in the middle of that short list discussion that he's on the edges of right now. Would you agree with that?
You're muted, James.
Yes, I do agree with that, but that's not the question. It's which team's legacy was hurt. So I wouldn't say it's Steph. I mean, I agree with you 100%. He definitely should have, if he won, he's in the top. He's probably right there with LeBron because, I mean, at the same time, it's not the greatest. It's not the greatest player's legacy was hurt. It's the team's legacy. So I got to look at New England as being still number one because, again, there's only one other team that has done this, and they were up there, and they would. And the unfortunate part about it is they played more games, but nobody's going to look at that. They played more games. It was a 17-0 season for Miami in '72. They had a 14-game season. This is a 16-game season. These guys they had a bye, of course, and they played two more games, but they should be 19-0. I mean, they played three more games. Excuse me. They should be 19-0. That one game is gonna again. You agree that it's haunting them, but it's gonna everybody's gonna look at that. It's like okay, Mercury Morris called, we had his chance to call out and say, we're still there. They're cracking champagne. Rest in peace, Mercury Morris. They're popping the bottles of champagne because they're still the only one that's undefeated.
Okay, but you're saying haunting. You're using the word what's haunting a team more.
What hurts that legacy? To me,
no, haunting is fine. It's fine to kind of change the narrative a little bit in the question as long as it's linked to the question. But Golden State was up 3-1. You don't think those guys, even though they have a few other championships, that season was magical, the 73 win season. They're not thinking, we were up 3-1 and we let it get away. 3-1. The Patriots had one game, and part of the Patriot thinking is it was a little bit of a fluke what went on. I'm sure that's their thinking, with the helmet catch, this and that. So the mindset might be a little different as to, how much it hurts that they lost. But I get what you're saying. For one given season, nothing compares to the Patriot loss. To come that close, one last defensive stop from getting that immortality. But it doesn't. But the 2 decades of dominance that the Patriots had, basically, even when they didn't win Super Bowls, they were dominant. For 2 decades. That's always going to last, and that's always, they're always going to be considered one of the great franchises of all time because of those 2 decades. But I think the Warriors are going to be remembered like the Kansas City Chiefs. Yeah, they had like a nice little run, but the longevity was, what, six years or so, nice, but not the longest, run like the Patriots had.
I'd say this: if the Patriots, what team do you think would trade a loss for a championship win in those two circumstances? Do you think that? I mean, if Golden State loses one more game, they'll be 72. They'll have 72 wins. But if they win the championship, would you consider them still one of the greatest teams in the NBA in NBA history? Even if they tied the Chicago Bulls record?
Me, I go on the naked eye thing. I don't go on records per se. I mean, if you ask me, your bad boy Pistons were a little better than that Warrior team. That's that's the naked eye test. Other people point to stats. I don't judge greatness on stats because circumstances change. Style of play, this or that, and it's even that Piston team that won back-to-back, the year before they won it, they got a little hosed on the call at the end of the game against Game 6 against the Lakers. Had they won that game and they three-peated, everyone would be calling the Pistons one of the greatest NBA teams of all time. But because they didn't get 3 in a row, they don't quite come up in the discussion as one of the greatest NBA teams ever. And it did hurt them. It did hurt the Piston legacy. But in my own naked eye, you have a tournament of all the great teams. I take the Pistons' chances very seriously in a tournament like that.
Well, what I'm trying to allude to is that if the Patriots had one loss during the season but can win that Super Bowl, do you think, looking at everything that's come from that Super Bowl for the Pats, it would be a whole different situation? Do you think they could actually winning that Super Bowl? They could be one of the best Super Bowl teams ever. Kind of like the same thing I'm trying to say with Golden State. Golden State traded a loss for a championship win, and they just won 72 games instead of 73, but they won a championship, would they be known as one of the greatest NBA teams, regardless of the eye test and all that stuff? It's just
they would because they would have been tied with the Bulls. They would have been attached to Michael Jordan and the Bulls. Then we would have talked the records. It's every time the names would have come up together, intertwined. Yeah. Had they won 71 games, maybe not. Maybe not. But then again, Steph Curry would have 5 championships, and he would have elevated the whole Warrior franchise because his name would have had to have been mentioned right beside Kobe Bryant. James, who was a better player, by the way, Kobe or Steph, for getting the championships? No one, really. That's a debatable question, maybe for another time. I don't know.
It's a lot of moving parts with that is a great question. But look, going 18-0 again, the legacy part, it just makes New England. They're great because of all their championships, but the one that eluded them. I mean, mind you, they lost 3 Super Bowls. We don't talk about that. They went to 9 Super Bowls during the era of Tom Brady and Bill Belichick, and lost. That's an incredible record. To win 6 Super Bowls, but to lose that one where you 18 again, the Giants weren't supposed to win that. They weren't supposed to beat this team. Again, this is like the old story of David and Goliath, and the Giants found the right mix, and they played an outstanding game. Again, I watched that game last night. It's incredible how devastating that defensive line was, and Tom Brady had no chance. He had no opportunity. They had no answer. I mean, don't get me wrong. He did enough to put them over the top with the last couple of minutes, but they gave that team, that offense, another 2 minutes to go back and win that game. It's just that's a devastating loss, and that's gonna be with them forever.
All right. On to another football note. Will Patrick Mahomes ever win a Super Bowl again?
Well, you want me? I'll take it. First off, you never know how things are going to transpire. You have to assume Patrick Mahomes is going to play until he can't play well anymore. You have to assume and hope he stays injury-free, at least for the most part. And how many years might Patrick Mahomes have? 8, 9 years left? I don't know. I mean, I'm just approximating or whatever. I'd answer no. I'd answer no. I mean, the way people talk about championships, it's like going into the candy store and just taking something out. It is so hard to just get to one Super Bowl because there's so much parity. Just because the Chiefs have done something amazing, like before this year, getting into something like is it 7 AFC championship games in a row or something like that, or 8 or whatever? That's amazing that they'd be one game away from the Super Bowl year after year. And he's won to 5 Super Bowls and he's won 3. That is phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. And people seem to take it for granted how hard it is to just get to one Super Bowl. You could even take your Lions, Brian. They've never been to one in franchise history. And they've had darn good teams.
Thanks for that, Jack.
No. Well, listen, these last 3 years, my Jets, they got into one Super Bowl when I was in high school or so and haven't been back. I mean, it is hard to get there. The Cleveland Browns have never been there. And the Cleveland Browns as far away as anyone, can be from getting to a Super Bowl. It is hard to get there. And the great players that help Patrick Mahomes get there, they get older. They get older, like Travis Kelce's, 36 now? And he's had a good bounce back. Yeah, kudos to Travis Kelce. He can still play. He's still very good. He's not the player he was, but he's better than most tight ends. And I know he has some other weapons and there's some youth on that team and all. But even if you have a heck of a good team, there's such parity. It's so hard to get back to the Super Bowl, let alone win it. And think of all the other great quarterbacks who are licking their chops, badly wanting to get there, who are basically on a level with Patrick Mahomes right now, or close to him. Josh Allen, when he's healthy, underline when he's healthy, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow. You have the young guns coming up. Drake May, Jaden Daniels, Caleb Williams showing improvement. You have the old guard of quarterbacks like Baker Mayfield, Dak Prescott. I know I missed some guys, and so on. It is so hard to get there. So if you're asking me, if I had to venture guess, will he win another Super Bowl? Will he win his fourth one or not? I'd have to say no because of the nature of parity and how darn hard it is.
So we just sat here and talked about a team that went to 9 Super Bowls, had a dynasty. They had everything in place. They had all these all these different moving parts, but the one thing that was a mainstay was the quarterback and the coach. Right now with the Chiefs, you got the same thing. You got the same thing. You got Patrick Mahomes, who's only 30, and what do you say? He's got maybe 7 or 8 good more years. Quarterbacks, they don't touch him anymore. They can't knock him to the ground. They can't beat him up like they used to. Patrick Mahomes has a golden arm, and he has magic feet. I think he'll have enough time to be able to move around and lean upon arguably one of the greatest coaches in the history of the NFL, in Andy Reid. Did Andy Reid say he was retiring or something? What kind of information you got, Jack? What'd you hear? I didn't hear it. Did he say he was leaving? Is he going out of town?
If they keep playing the way they are, he might not have a choice in the matter.
He's not going to retire. There's no way. Everybody has a down year. Everybody has a down. Everybody has players that go eventually have to go to Shady Acres and retire. I mean, Travis Kelce is probably on his way. But you replace him. Tom Brady didn't always have a Gronkowski. They had Ben Watson that year. They went to the 2007 Super Bowl, and he almost scored a TD. He got passed interfered with when I watched that game. They didn't have Gronkowski. Again, my point is you have moving parts, but when you have a mainstay at quarterback, let's go back to the 80s and 90s. We're talking about John Elway. John Elway, his early teams with Dan Reeves. Dan Reeves, rest in peace, Dan Reeves, was a good coach, but that team, when you look back at those teams when they played those 3 Super Bowls, can you name me any of the players on those teams outside of John Elway? I mean, I can remember Bobby Humphrey, I can remember Vance Johnson, but these are guys that you like. Who are those guys? There's a reason they lost those Super Bowls to the 49ers and to the Washington Redskins, the Giants.
Yeah,
Redskins,
Giants,
and the 49ers.
And the 49ers, yeah.
Yeah. There's a reason those teams were great, but I mean they didn't have the star power on those teams. Now, mind you, when you get to the 97 and 98 with Mike Shanahan, it wasn't really on his back. I mean, it was on Terrell Davis's back and that powerful defense that they had. I mean, they had Rod Smith, the wide receiver.
Smith,
Yep. They had a great team.
Shannon
and
Sharp.
So, yes, exactly. Wasn't the same. And I think you keep those 2 guys for the next foreseeable future, they're definitely going to win another Super Bowl. And it may be sooner than later. Who knows? And the way they're playing right now, I mean, mind you, he last night, or was it 2 days ago, that he played against the Cowboys. Cowboys looks a lot better, but Mahomes played a great game. It's just unfortunately they lost. They lost to a team that looks like they're moving on the upward trajectory, and it was at the wrong time because they played a couple of games where they probably should have won. But it happens. I just think that they're going to regroup. I mean, they just got a few more guys on offense. They need a few more pieces on defense. It may not be this year, Jack. It may not be this year, but I think at some point they will regroup and be in a point again where they're in the mix. If
No,
you
of course they could be in the mix with Mahomes. I'm talking about actually winning a Super Bowl. Lots of teams in the mix year after year. This 49er team has been in the mix year after year. But it's actually winning a Super Bowl. There's so many good teams, James, with good quarterbacks. I mean, you could
But
list
that's
them.
good quarterbacks, Jack. We're talking about a great quarterback. Definitely a great quarterback with a great coach. If you name the 49ers, name me a great quarterback in the same ilk as Patrick Mahomes that Shanahan has had. And he hasn't won a Super Bowl with any of those guys we talk about. Brock Purdy, uh, Garoppolo. Come on, man. These aren't the guys. I think if we switch quarterbacks or at those Super Bowls, they're winning. If Patrick Mahomes is the quarterback, they're winning those Super Bowls. So it's hard to really put. That's what I'm saying. Is Mahomes going to win another Super Bowl? I say yes, only because he has a great coach. You have a tandem in both coach and quarterback. You can change all the other moving parts around, and I think that's what's going to happen. I mean, because again, I just named a quarterback. I mean, unfortunately, I can't name a great coach outside of Don Shula that was with Dan Marino when he went to his first Super Bowl. After that, you can't name you can't name me great receivers nor great running backs that Dan Marino had to allow him. Who would think that that great quarterback like that would never get back to the Super Bowl? Never, ever. He lost the Super Bowl. There was no great parts around him to me to put him in success or in position to succeed. Patrick Mahomes is there, and it starts with the coach, and that's to me that's what matters.
I think to your point with the Denver Broncos is the reason why Elway got them to those Super Bowls, but the problem was that the team did not understand that they need a running game. And the running backs that they did have weren't the greatest running backs either. And when you do that in the Super Bowl, you're going to key on their strengths. You're going to as a defense, you're going to key on their strengths, and their strengths was Elway. And if you have nothing to offset that, it ain't going to happen. So once they got Terrell Davis and they won those 2 Super Bowls, I mean it was night and day, because Elway was still the great player that he was. He just needed a little help as far as the running game is concerned, just like any quarterback does in today's game. As far as Patrick Mahomes winning another Super Bowl, as long as Dan Reed is there and they know how to, if Kelsey retires, they know how to restock that line or restock that particular position, they'll be fine. They can win one more. I'm not saying
Yeah,
they're not going to win.
they can, of course, absolutely, and they could absolutely be in the mix for a number of years. My point is, it's so hard to win a Super Bowl. It's so hard to get a level of favoritism. The Chiefs had it for a number of years. This Chief team before this year, they had
No, not Shannon.
favoritism.
It was
They lost the favoritism. The Patriots had favoritism going into a year, but the Chiefs have lost that favoritism. Sometimes a mini dynasty has favoritism, and once you lose it, it's so hard to get it back. You become just one of the guys, basically. You don't become the guy. You don't become the man anymore in a sense, team wise. That's what I'm saying. Like, you look at the NFC in football now, with the Eagles losing yesterday, the Eagles all of a sudden have lost their level of favoritism. It's like anyone can win it in the NFC as long as they get in the playoffs. I mean, you can't say any one particular team is a clear favorite. The Eagles would have been a clear favorite before these last couple of games that they played. Same thing in the AFC. Whoever gets there, no one is a favorite, actually, going into it. And the Chiefs become just one of a good number of teams that are going to have a shot at it going forward. Can they cash in? Maybe. But if I had to guess one way or the other, no, Patrick Mahomes doesn't win another Super Bowl, even though maybe 5 years down the road they do nab one. Who knows? I wouldn't be shocked. But if I had to say either or, I'd say no, because of how hard it is, not because of the type of player he is. He is, because we know he's one of the all-time greats.
Well, I mean, if Kansas City gets in the playoffs, that's a problem because Kansas City is really good in the playoffs. That's what they do. That's what their team is built for, the playoffs. Same thing with Philadelphia. Philadelphia can be crap and get in the playoffs and get a heater and beat everybody because they're a well put together team. It's just like Kansas City, well put together team. I just think that there's an element of fear, not so much fear, but I think there's an element that you don't want to see Kansas City in the playoffs and you don't want to see the Eagles in the playoffs. So, because anytime that happens, they could go to the Super Bowl, either one of those teams. And I'm not saying that's why I say I can't see Patrick Mahomes not winning a Super Bowl again. I can see him winning a Super Bowl, especially if Reeves is still around. I mean, coach and quarterback, like James says, that's a hard combination to beat. So, yeah, it's tough to say, especially with all the teams being, starting to become what's the word that you use, Jack? Parallel.
Yeah,
basically.
parity. Yeah, I mean, even
Parity.
look at yesterday. All of a sudden, now going forward in the next 2-3 years, the Bears are in the mix. If they're not in the mix this year, all of a sudden, to go to the Super Bowl, new teams are merging all the time. Maybe the Seattle Seahawks, before the regular season's over, they stamp themselves as a serious threat to go to the Super Bowl. We know the Rams are a serious threat. The Packers, if the Lions can somehow get in the playoffs now, they're a threat. I mean, the Eagles certainly are. My point is that, like so many teams, even in the AFC, the Denver Broncos are a threat because of Sean Payton. The Buffalo Bills are always a threat. If Lamar Jackson gets healthy by the end of the year, maybe the Ravens show up. Jim Harbaugh and the Chargers are going to be a threat going forward. There's so many good teams, and if I pose the same question to you guys, do you think Jim Harbaugh is ever going to win a Super Bowl as coach of the Chargers? Chances are you guys are going to say yes because of the high regard you have for Harbaugh. If I say Sean Payton, is he ever going to win a Super Bowl? Chances are you guys are going to say yes because of the high regard you have for Sean Payton. There are only so many Super Bowls you can win. There's only one a year. Someone's going to have to miss the party because there's overcrowding.
But you got to give that same respect to Patrick Mahomes. Is he ever going to win another championship? Chances are you should say yes because of how great he is.
He might, but how hard it is to get one. We're
spoiled
by
what they've done in the history of the Kansas City Chiefs history is hard, but yet they did it. I mean, it's just hard, but I mean, again, it's not impossible. They still could do it. I mean, I wouldn't have thought. If I can go back and look at Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes starting out together, I wouldn't have thought they created a dynasty like this. I'll be honest with you, and I don't think neither one of you can say the same thing. You can say Andy Reid, he had a great success with the Eagles. He had decent success with the Chiefs, but nobody saw this coming. But yet here we are in 2025. Several Super Bowls later, they got a dynasty, pretty much three championships. They lost two. They lost two. They went to 5.
They're not going to be in the playoffs this year. So
probably not.
Have to really get jump started next.
But teams don't bounce back. I think teams. Yes, I think this is a team that will bounce back. And that said, I think they're going to win another championship within the window of Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid's combination.
Okay.
All right. Next question. Who was the single most entertaining, charismatic player in the NBA history? Go ahead, James. We'll get you on this one first.
See, you got to watch Jack. He puts these questions up, man, and
if it's a bad question, you can say it.
He wants you to say the obvious answer that people are going to look at and say, okay, they have specific people that when we say most entertaining and charismatic.
The number of them, James, it's not one in particular. It's not a lock, whoever we're going to name. It's the number of them. It's not an obvious
I tell you, B, you got to watch that because as soon as you say your answer, he's like, James, I thought you were smarter than that. I thought if you you one of the guys.
Okay, you took my line away from me. Okay, you read my mind. Okay.
So with that said, look, I don't care what he's going to say. I got to give it to Michael Jordan, and I that was in my mind. I went down the list. I mean, you could say Magic Johnson, you can say Steph Curry, you can say LeBron James. I got to give it to Michael Jordan because when you say in history, we're not just talking on the court. We're talking off the court, commercials, movies, uh, entertaining. I mean, high flying dunks, the drive and the championship, the shoes. I mean, everything was just entertaining, and he was very charismatic. I mean, again, I have a 1A, 1B. Magic Johnson was my 1B because of him, how he started with the Showtime Lakers. But the Bulls, the Bulls were terrible before Michael Jordan, and this guy comes out. He has his own shoes. Nobody had that. Nobody had their own shoes. They had shoes that they wore, but like he had Air Jordans. His name was on the shoe. He had him on his body on the shoe. It was just entertaining. It made me want to go get a pair of those shoes, and I did. And I only got one because they were just too expensive. I had to buy them myself. So with that said, Michael Jordan, man, it's just I don't even know how to. I don't even know how you could say anybody else because he was just totally entertaining. He got to the dunk contest. I mean, he won it. None of these guys that I could think of that were on that level since maybe Kobe Bryant, you can kind of say maybe he was. But nobody has done all these things that are just like in the stratosphere. There's just nobody has reached that. He's still selling shoes. Kids these days are still talking about him. He doesn't even play anymore. He's probably the greatest to be entertaining and charismatic because everybody's drawn in. Other generations that haven't played, nobody's talking about Dr. J like that. That in these generations, nobody wants to look, but they know who Michael Jordan is. They're wearing his shoes, man. So to me, he's the most entertaining, the most charismatic ever in the NBA. This is my opinion.
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from. We're not talking about who's the greatest player. If Michael Jordan wasn't the consensus greatest player of all time, you wouldn't be calling him the most entertaining, charismatic player in NBA history. I think you're adding in the element how great a player he was, and that's not quite part of the question, but I understand the way you feel it can be linked. Now, if you want to just talk about what made Michael Jordan so dynamic, so supposedly so entertaining and charismatic, it would be Air Jordan, the way he'd go in the air and he'd slam dunk or whatever. But Julius Erving was more entertaining that way. And I think the majority of NBA fans, if they took a vote who was a little better in the air, who was a little more entertaining doing their thing, they'd actually give a slight lean to Dr. J. I know they asked Johnny Sally that, who was Jordan's teammate and good friend. They asked who was better in the air, and he smiled and he said Dr. J. Something about the way Dr. J did things. But the guy I thought you were going to mention actually, and shame on you for ignoring your hometown, James. Shame on you, Pistol. He isn't my selection, but I thought you were going to say Pistol Pete Maravich,
No,
charismatic,
very, very. But I
entertaining.
mean,
I mean, he did. He was more. Who was more fun to watch with the ball in their hands? Michael Jordan or Pete Maravich? Who was more entertaining with the ball in their hands? Jordan was miles ahead of him as a player. Jordan was miles ahead of practically everyone as a player. I'm not degrading Jordan's greatness for
no,
1 second,
sure.
but Pistol Pete was a version of the Harlem Globetrotters in real time during a real game. The things he would do with the ball, he was playing horse during the games, Pistol Pete, the things he was doing. But with that said, my answer, I'm going to dig into the past. Even before my time, Bob Cousy Bob Cousy, he did things that were never done before with the ball. The way he would dribble, zigzag the court, the no-look passes by Bob Cousy that were made famous later on. Players prided themselves in the no-look passes, the type that Magic Johnson used, Bob Cousy used. And I know, too, when I was in college, all I would hear about Bob Cousy, Bob Cousy, Bob Cousy, being a phys ed major in the basketball curriculum. Bob Cousy this, Bob Cousy that. He was the guy. Part of the reason, too, let's be honest, there was a little along racial lines, too. The big O Oscar Robertson was a better player, but he was black, so he didn't, get the accolades. I mean, everyone knew how great Oscar was, and they gave him his due in that regard, but he wasn't given the commercial opportunities that Bob Cousy was given for that reason. But even with that said, no one was as entertaining as Coos dribbling the ball. Just watch the old films. I mean, the guy was doing things that were completely unheard of during his time. So I think if you compare era to era, Bob Cousy was a tiny bit more entertaining and charismatic in his era than anyone else was in theirs. So he would get my kind of vote, but people don't really remember. Cruz is alive still. He's something like 96 years old, and no one's interviewing him or says anything to talk about, maybe the oldest iconic sports legend around. It's Bob Cousy.
I think that's a really good answer. I watched a lot of his highlights. I remember, rest in peace, Mac. He gave me him to talk about as one of his sports memories. And Bob Cousy was great. He was great, like you said, during this era. I just have to look, like you said, during the era, and not to compare eras. It's just unfair to even do. I just think that in the full scope of how someone might be entertaining and charismatic and what they've done, their accomplishments. I mean, Bob Cousy's won championships too, but changing how people view things and changing cultures in regards to basketball. It's just Michael Jordan is just on another level, and just how we entertain is just very different. I mean, like you said, the high flying dunks, like you mentioned, Dr. J. The unfortunate part about Dr. J is that no one really saw him. The ABA wasn't on TV like that.
I saw him now. Maybe I have a different perspective.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So a lot of people, there's not a lot of footage out there about the prime Dr. J. There's more folklore about how great he was on Rucker Park and in the ABA, because again, like I said, they didn't have the rights to TV, so you didn't get there's not a lot of footage out there about it. Like you said, you got to see him during that time, which I'm pretty sure that's an amazing thing to have lasting memory in regard. Yeah, exactly. So again, just through off evidence and what I've seen, I can't name anybody else greater. And I give a nice nod to Bob Cousy out of respect of just him as a player and what he, like you said, innovative in what he was doing out there. And Bob grew up in the neighborhoods where he was playing with other kids, that weren't the same color as him. And so he came from like a lot of, poor, just remembering the history here. He wasn't rich by any means. And so he played in the streets just like a lot of those kids. And Bob was awesome. But some of the things I think he was doing, they couldn't do in college. Like they wouldn't allow you to dunk in college during that time. So yeah, I give kudos to Bob Cousy for what he was able to do. But I just think at the level at someone was doing it, Michael Jordan was just doing it above everybody else.
Okay, so I misread this question based on what your answers are. Okay, when you said who was the most single entertainer, I didn't think it had anything to do with how successful somebody was in the league or anything like that. What I took this was, who do you remember who was out there? And I would say my most single entertaining charismatic player in the NBA was Dennis Rodman. Because the dude was flashy. And he was a very good player on the court, since we want to compare stuff. He was a very good player on the court too. He out rebounded everybody. He was a great defensive player, and the fact that his hair was always a different color, he was always intertangling with different superstars off the court. Had baby mama drama all the time. Was going out there with Madonna. I mean, the dude was as hilarious on the court as he was off the court. He was actually more hilarious off the court than he was on the court because he did his job once he was on the court. But still, he had a flair about that too. So that's what I went with. I mean, those are good.
Those are good answers. That's a good answer. That's a good answer because Dennis Rodman had tremendous charisma. I'll name another one, but who was a great player. Tremendous charisma, Allen Iverson, with his cross dribble, his move, and just, as a fan, if you were going to take a young person to a game as your guest to sit down and you want them to see like an iconic player, obviously you want them Jordan, LeBron, and all that. I get that. But you'd want them to see an Allen Iverson. He's someone who is eye-catching. I'll give you an idea who was charismatic. You guys can laugh. He wasn't a great player. He was just a little better than average, maybe. Muggsy Bogues, because he was so short, 5'3". The idea, Spud Webb, the idea these short guys can actually compete, made them charismatic. The circumstance. Sean Bradley, 7'6". Just, anyone. Mutombo, his height, Manute Bol, just their height made him charismatic, the circumstance.
There are a few other guys that people don't really mention. To me, Shaquille O'Neal is one. Charles Barkley is one as well. I mean, back in the day, Barkley, without a doubt. But yeah, again, just being at the top list. But that Dennis Rodman popped in my head too. I'm not going to even lie. That's a great answer, Brian.
Listening to Charles Barkley lately, I mean, I like Charles Barkley. I think he's a good person. I really do. And I judge things, as I've said before. If I had to take a car trip cross country and hang out with someone whose company I might enjoy, and I think I'd enjoy Barkley's company. I think we get along really great. But some of the things he says contradictory. He talks about load management, putting down the players. Well, Charles was lazy in his time when he was a player as far as keeping in top shape all the time. So I don't want to hear about people making, low money, coming into work every day and players not working hard enough. He didn't quite do it, I feel, at least various points during his own career.
Oh, no. Let's get that straight. Barkley definitely mentioned that he was not in good shape. And he had a good friend in Moses Malone that told him straight to his face, "You're fat and out of shape." Mm-hmm. And he said, "Well, what can I do?" He told him just like that. That's what Barkley said. Mm-hmm. And he said, "What can I do to get better?" He said, "Well, we can work on it. Let's work on 10 pounds first. And then when you lose 10 pounds, work on another 10 pounds." And he said he lost 50 pounds doing that and kept it off the remainder of his career. So if anybody can tell somebody to stop being lazy and fat, is a guy who was lazy and fat in Charles Barkley in the beginning of his career. Because they speak on Zion with his weight issues. He spoke on it several times, and he said, and he gave those anecdotes about that in regards to his early part of his career. Why wasn't he getting playing time? And that's the reason why he said it. He said, "Because you're lazy and fat." And
wait. But when Barkley went to the Houston Rockets to join Scottie Pippen,
I agree with that too.
Pippen later said Barkley was too lazy, as far as getting in the shape he should have gotten into.
Right. Towards that part of his career, I would imagine that, yes, he probably did it then. But during this time when he was with Phoenix and the latter part of his career with Philadelphia, he was in phenomenal shape.
And I just got done reading a book on the Laker dynasty by Jeff Pearlman, a very good book written like 5 years ago, where as much of a jerk as Kobe Bryant could be, he had a good point about Shaquille O'Neal later on during his time with the Lakers. He just didn't get into the top shape he should have, and Kobe was a workaholic.
Right. No, that's totally fair. And even Shaq, like Kobe later on admitted, he said if Shaq was in the shape that he could actually be in, we'd win way more championships than we would have won. Because he was giving him credit as to saying, you're arguably the most dominant player I'm playing with, but yet you're not taking advantage of who what your potential could be, because you're just going off just who you are and just not expounding upon it by taking care of yourself, by being in the best shape. And that was, like you said, that was the mentality of Kobe Bryant. Kobe Bryant was, I agree with the black mama mentality was real. And so, yeah, I totally agree with that. Shaq, he lost a few by not being in shape.
I'd say there's quite a few people that you could put in the entertaining charismatic players in the NBA, because remember Mutombo, what do we still do all the time? No, no, no. That dude is that. It's like some people just brazen phrases that go out through the length of time. I mean, Mutombo hasn't played in how many years, and everybody still does that. You know, when somebody gets rejected, it doesn't make a difference what it is. You miss a layup in a basket at the office. It's no, no, no. You know, that kind of stuff. You know,
You just gave me a reason to bring it back to my answer, which I say Michael Jordan is still number one, because Jordan dunked on Mutombo and did the no to him. It was just great. Yes, again, probably Mutombo is definitely entertaining.
Dunking like that is so overrated, where they say putting a guy in a poster. You know, your body is
Oh,
turned, you're a little off balance, and someone dunks the ball. It's no big deal, but people
what do
glorify
you
it.
mean it's no big deal? Now we're gonna waste another 4 minutes talking about this because you bring in our last 4 minutes. Because it's a great deal. What are you talking about? I guess you weren't one of those kids
But
that put
Starks
posters up in
dunked
your
on
room
Jordan.
and they
Wait,
actually when
wait.
you
Starks dunked on Jordan. So am I going to put Jordan down? I mean, come on, it's
you
overrated.
should. He had his time to get
No.
dunked on. It was a great dunk. I remember that game, and that was just one of the most. And it wasn't just Jordan. It was two people there, and he dunked on. The Kevin Johnson Olajuwon dunk. Man, come on. These are some of the little man dunking on big men. It wasn't just all balance. Some of those guys got dunked on straight up. It's just what it is. Man, it's just how you. I mean, like I said, you must not have been one of those. I was one of those kids in the '90s and the '80s that put the posters up that you couldn't believe that your favorite player or some guy out of nowhere just giving the business to some big guy like that.
yeah. I kind of let me put this in perspective. I kind of agree with Jack in some certain cases, but at the same time, the dunk is supposed to be that kind of play in a game where you basically belittle somebody. That's why that word posterized is out there, because you get posterized as somebody dunks in your face, and it kind of makes you feel like, dang, he dunked in his face. Those are the best dunks to me. Dunking at the dunk contest, whatever. Anybody can dunk nowadays in the NBA. That's not even impressive anymore. What I see is when they get dunked on in the game. Like it depends on how they get dunked on in the game. They come from the baseline and they just boom. Like Michael Jordan did that quite a few times to people. And that's what makes dunk spectacular to me. I don't care about the dunk contest. Okay, that's cute, but you're not doing it on anybody. You're just dunking. Or they do that during the game when they'll have an open dunk and they just dunk it showtime. That don't mean nothing to me. I can live or die with that stuff. I don't care about that. When you dunk on somebody, that's what's exciting.
Like
It's
the
just like the three-point play.
Sean Kemp dunk in the game. Sean Kemp was definitely one of those guys that would give somebody the business, and when you're on the floor, point the finger down at you. Scottie Pippen, the dunk on Patrick Ewing when he dunked on him and walked over him. Not saying that's in the moment, those things, and even when you look at it now, it's like, wow, that guy. Unfortunately, like you said, if Ewing, like when people were off balance a little bit, Ewing, he just didn't have the lift anymore because his knees weren't all that great. He was a great center, but again, he it was a guy when you're standing there under the goal and you're putting those arms up, you better try to block it, because man, if somebody's dunking on you, it's just an embarrassing moment, and most of these guys have had it, including Michael Jordan.
Anyway, that brings us to the end of the show. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for your banter. We enjoy that all the time. And just remember, tomorrow is the Big Football Show. On Monday morning, it's the Jack and Keith weekend playbook. And at 7 o'clock, Jack will have a special guest on there for the Gloved Fist with Frank. Y'all have a very good weekend. Enjoy.